The last part is review, which is figuring out why you got things wrong, why you had difficulty with things. Maybe it was a time constraint, maybe it was just the fundamental concepts that the questions were testing. Doesn't really matter, but you've got to figure out what it is so you can avoid making those same mistakes again. One thing I too often see from students is that they want to take exam after exam, measure the results, be happy or sad about those results, and then move on from there. And that's understandable. That's what I did back when I was studying. It actually took me an entire year to go from a 152 to a 175. And the biggest breakthrough I had was when I was able to figure out why I was making the same mistakes again and again. Because even just a set of 10 exams could be enough to review. If you review those in depth, that could be enough material to show you pretty much everything the exam could potentially test you on. But people want to do all 86 numbered exams and the other 7 that are unnumbered, so that brings you to nearly 100. But does that mean that 5 years from now you should do another 15 exams also and increase to 105 perhaps? Like, no, that's not the point. The point is take the most recent 10, 20, 30 exams, work within those specifically. Maybe you want to do exams 62 to 71, untimed, by type, in your accuracy phase, then use 72 to 81 as timed sections, use 82 to 87 for your full-length timed exams, and maybe mix in some earlier ones as well. But it's really important that you don't neglect the review process. I would rather you do 1 exam a week and review it in excruciating detail than do 2 exams a week and barely do any review at all. Have any of you been doing review as part of your prep process? What does your review process look like?
I try to do the blind review that was also gone over previously, but I am kind of struggling. That's why I wanted to also ask you what your best approach is to review. Is it to like listen to explanations of questions online, or is it kind of trying to figure out what you specifically did wrong? So I don't know.
That's a great question. Yeah, and ultimately you want to mix. Explanations can be useful. Blind review can also be useful. There are a couple of things I would add on to that though. First off is, if you're just learning, if you're in one of the earlier phases, then sure, look at explanations to kind of hold your hand and guide you as to how you might go about doing the questions, because someone else's diagramming style is probably better than whatever you've cooked up on your own, because people have been through the process before and kind of refined diagramming techniques. So I would recommend looking at explanations first. But once you're later into your study process, you've got to own the material. And that means that you can figure out some way to do it on your own, in your own language, in your own style. And then later, you can check it against explanations online, whether they're video or written, doesn't matter. One thing I would suggest is, for the problems that give you the most difficulty, actually articulate in your own words your thought process. So that means, just like I want you to do in this class. So for example, anything you got wrong, anything you had difficulty with, where was your mistake? Was it in, let's say, logical reasoning? Was it in the stimulus? Was it in the question stem? Or was it in the answer choices? If it was in the stimulus, obviously you've got to engage with what was their method of reasoning, perhaps. If it was just IDing the question stem, maybe you have to drill and refine your identification of different question types. Or if it was in the answer choices, what was tempting about the wrong answer that made you pick it, and what ultimately makes it wrong? And what is discouraging about the right answer that pushes you away from it, and what ultimately makes it correct? You want to do this again and again and again. Not necessarily for all 20 questions you might have had difficulty with or gotten wrong in an exam, but maybe the toughest 5. You actually want to write it out or talk it out with a friend or a study buddy or a tutor or instructor or somebody. But you've got to put it out into the world and outside of your own head. Get it out of your head, because it's too easy if you're just kind of thinking it over. You could say, oh yeah, I see why it was A. How could I have been so dumb? And then you just move on from there. But if your review of a question's taking 30 seconds or 3 minutes, that's not really enough. You want it to take maybe at least 5-10 minutes, if not more. Then the question is, how could you do that for 2 exams a week? And I'd say you probably can't, which means reduce to 1 exam a week so that you can review it in more depth. The other thing I would say is, as part of your blind review process, one thing you might want to do is rate your confidence level on each attempt. Meaning that first attempt, rank your confidence in what you're choosing on a scale of 1 to 10, but you're not allowed to choose 7, because 7 is the cop-out answer. 7's like, I kind of feel pretty good about it. Make a decision, either 6 and below, where like you're not really that sure, or 8 and above, which means you're fairly confident. And C, were you overly confident the first time but not the second, or vice versa, and see where the mismatch is. You can see if it's a time constraint issue, or if it's a fundamentals issue, or you were just down to 2 and you got lucky one time and not lucky the other time.